Are you done with being in that valley? Are you ready to start moving and going on that hike again up the mountain to see what you can find at the top? If that feels true for you, then you are in the right place and you are not alone, because that is a thread I've been seeing in my office this week, in myself this week, outside in the world this week. So let's talk about our collective threads. Welcome to Our Collective Threads, a podcast where we talk about the ways that maybe we are a little more connected than we realize, and that maybe like the things that we're going through, we're not going through alone, that there might actually be a lot of us going through the same things at the same times. For those who don't know me, my name is Kelly Rhyne, and I am a trauma and grief therapist. And I also love talking and educating, and I love creating. And I also am like a mystic. I love sitting in the mystery of life and wondering why things are the way they are. I always say our spirituality, our faith is dead if we are not asking the next question, because there's always more to ask and more to know. And one of the things that I want to know and understand is how we are more connected, and seeing why is it that when I'm doing these therapy sessions, I end up talking about almost the same thing in every session. Like there is something in the universe or in the water or whatever it might be that is causing a lot of us to go through the same thing at the same time. And so today's thread is going to be all about how do we get going. We've been stuck in this valley, so to speak, like we were last week in last week's episode. And you know what? I think I'm done. I think I'm ready to start moving and going up this mountain and seeing what's at the top. Or maybe you didn't want to move, but something in your life is forcing you to do it. It might be against your will that you've had to move out of this valley. So whether by choice or by the universe's decision, you're going to have to start moving. I feel like this past week that's been really true for me. I've been very grief bursty this week, more so than I ever anticipated or expected. It's actually my birthday while I'm recording this today. I've realized that something about this birthday in particular is holding a significant amount of grief for me, that there is something just that's becoming a lot more real about some of the losses that I've had in my life coming to this particular birthday, forcing me into a little bit of that acknowledgement of my reality. I went to bed last night and I had a wonderful evening hanging out with my friends watching Mean Girls. And I went to bed and just all of a sudden got that flood of loss and grief about my journey toward where I am now and all of the changes that I've had to make in the past year. You know, there's something about birthdays that just gets you really reflective, right? Like you just start thinking about, wow, who was I last year? Where was I at last year? And the grief of that just hit me like a ton of bricks last night. I started realizing and thinking about, wow, a year ago, I was really struggling at my job, at my nonprofit. And for a long time, I thought it was just like the ADHD autism of it all. But I came to realize I was actually dealing with a physical issue and that it was getting worse and that I could not use the computer anymore. It was causing me too much pain and nausea and migraines. And so I went to get assessed at a doctor and actually got a page full of diagnoses and started doing eye therapy. I was doing everything I could to stay at this nonprofit. I was so passionate about my work there. I was school-based therapist working at a high school, and I loved my my teens. Like deeply love them. And we were making some really phenomenal progress together. I felt like we're about to make some shifts and turns for a lot of these kids' lives and their mental health. And I didn't want to abandon them in the middle of this really important process they were going through. And at the same time, my body was rebelling. My body was rebelling. It was like, no, you can't do this anymore. You're done. I've had that happen a few times in my life. That again, it's that rock bottom thing. Like, do we have to hit rock bottom in order to make a change? Well, sometimes we do, y'all. Sometimes that's what it's going to take. We're just not, for whatever reason, able to receive the messages that are saying, you need to stop, you need to breathe, you need to rest and recover and rejuvenate yourself. And so I hit that rock bottom. I ended up forced into short-term disability because they didn't want to give me a reasonable accommodation. I was so angry and upset. I didn't feel like what I was going through was necessary or needed. And the way that I went through it, it was so volatile and hurtful. I was in a place of deep, deep grief. And for the first week, I slept, man. I slept like a rock. I slept 12 hours a day for my first week on short-term disability. That is how severely burnt out my body was. And I've really been reflective of that time because I realized that I still had some grief that was really stuck inside in me about that time and the loss that occurred and the anger I feel about the injustice of what was done to me and to my clients, because, oh my God, like they already go through so much. They don't need the upheaval of their therapist, like randomly disappearing and thinking they're going to come back and then they never come back. That's painful for them. I realized I initially had a lot of guilt around that I had to work through. And I think what I've come to realize is I haven't fully gotten over my anger and frustration at the injustices that I experienced at that time, and that I didn't get to choose to open my private practice when I wanted to open it, that I was kind of forced to open my private practice out of necessity because I couldn't really make a transition easily because I was stuck on short-term disability and people didn't want to touch me with a 10-foot pole as far as like employment. It was really weird. And so I was kind of forced into it. I was forced to start moving up the mountain, so to speak. So I wouldn't say I've made it fully up the mountain yet, but I have finally started moving up that mountain. And it definitely has not been pretty. It has been very rocky. And I don't know what y'all have been experiencing as far as getting out of your valleys of the soul and what instigated you to start making that move to start actively mourning and working through your losses and letting yourself actually feel the pain of your losses and remember what happened to you and form those new identities. But for me, it was definitely a forced situation, and the grief and the anger, the pain of it just hit. It burst out. And I was so frustrated and hurt that I'm in the place that I am right now. The thing about starting a private practice is usually you can like do some planning. You can have some money saved and make your way into it piece by piece. I had to go in with nothing, 0 clients, $0. The grief of going up this private practice, owning my own business mountain for the past 8 months now. Yeah, is it 9 months even? 9 months. And to the outside, yes, my business is successful. I have a decent sized caseload. I'm doing well in that regard, but I'm not doing well because the reality is all of the money I make, I have to put right back in the business because I started with nothing. And so I'm at this place where it almost feels like I went up a small mountain and hit a mini valley. And now I'm about to do the rest of the big climb, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? Now is the time to make like the big shift and change to really accomplish what I came here to accomplish. And that is creating a thriving mental health practice that is anti-professional and raw and real and sensory seeking and neurodivergent friendly and anti-capitalist and anti-colonialist and anti-racist and and not homophobic or transphobic and not based in a medical model, which is so problematic, leaning into that social model. And there's been a lot of bumps along the way, like going up that initial hill, and I started to fall down again. I started to come down. But I'm ready to make that big mountain climb now. There were lessons learned on this smaller hill that are going to help me accomplish the bigger hill, so to speak. And that's one thing I do want to highlight is we need to start celebrating our mistakes. We need to recognize the benefit of mistake making. Because if I didn't make the mistakes that I made, I wouldn't have grown into the person that I am today. It is in our nature to make mistakes. And if we were always perfect, if we literally just lived our life perfectly, and who the hell wants to do that? It's so boring. Nothing would be interesting. What makes life interesting is all of the ups and downs. If everything was like this all of the time, would it even be a life worth living? You know, I feel like living is all about the ups, downs, and the in-betweens. So we need to make mistakes. It is part of the human experience. We don't know everything. Again, leaning into that mystery. We inherently are never going to know everything. So just by human nature, we are going to make a mistake. And in that mistake making, we have the opportunity to take the information of, I shouldn't have done that. Interesting. Okay. So if I shouldn't have done that, and this harmed me or harmed other people or harmed a particular system, I need to own up to that. I need to own that this was not great. This was not helpful. I need to own up to that. And it can't stop there, right? Because that's going to just keep us in the valley. The way we get moving is by saying, how am I going to take what I just learned and apply it to going up the next mountain? How am I going to make a slight shift or change in my approach to life so that maybe I won't enact that type of harm or mistake again? That is where we learn and grow. And so we have to be willing to be vulnerable enough to make mistakes in order to grow. And this is where I come to my other theme of the week that has really come up, which is safety. What is safe? And so in order for us to be vulnerable, a lot of us feel like we have to have this experience or this feeling of 100% safety. I have to be fully safe in order to even take a chance at being vulnerable. And here's the thing about safety. One, we are never, ever going to be fully safe because that's just not how the world works. An asteroid could hit this office right now and the podcast will be over. The thing is, we might be safe enough. So while there's never 100% full safety, we have to acknowledge that. It's just not realistic to say, I am safe 100%, because it's not actually factual, right? It's a feeling maybe. Maybe I feel 100% safe, but it's not factual because technically we're never 100% safe. But what we are, what we do have is the feeling of being safe enough to take the risk of being vulnerable. And that is why back in the day, I created a video where I was trying to start this movement, because we talk a lot about it's okay to not be okay. And that is very important to talk about because obviously there's so many of us who are out here being silent sufferers and just are feeling like crap every day and don't want to talk about it and be vulnerable about depression or the anxiety or the constant anger and frustration that we're feeling. And there's another side to it as well that I don't think we acknowledge enough and talk about enough. And that is that it is also okay to be okay. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is when you have been through a lot of difficult things, especially if it was complex trauma kind of stuff, or you were in environments that the dangers were unpredictable, or even if you had just an acute incident of trauma, like a car accident, for example, and you couldn't really anticipate that, your body, your brain now is dealing with it by thinking that anything could be lurking around the next corner. And so we have to constantly be on danger mode, right? So there is this element of it's okay to be okay that needs to be discussed, because sometimes we we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable because we're operating under an understanding that it has to be 100% safe in order for us to be vulnerable, but we're never going to be safe. That's just not realistic. But what we could strive for is being safe enough. What do I need to feel safe enough to be vulnerable? What do I need to be safe enough to be okay with being okay? Like, can things actually be going okay for a second? Can I put down my defenses and my worries and just let myself enjoy being okay and know that I am safe enough to let myself feel that? Because if we don't take those risks, then man, that's a stressful life, y'all. That's a really stressful life to live, where we're constantly worried about when the next shoe is going to drop or walking on those eggshells. But maybe there are times in your life, even if it's for 5 minutes, where you feel safe enough to be vulnerable. Maybe you feel safe enough to be vulnerable locking yourself up in your closet. Maybe that place is safe enough. Maybe you're safe enough driving in your car and you can cry, belt out your favorite tunes that help you feel your feelings. Maybe that can be safe enough. Maybe being safe enough looks like going on a bike ride through the neighborhood and just feeling the breeze and letting yourself go as fast as you can. It feels safe enough to do that. So I want you to think about this week, where are the places in your life that, even if it's for just a moment, that you feel safe enough? Where are those places for you that maybe I can take the risk of being vulnerable even for just a minute? If I lock myself up in this bathroom, I can feel safe enough to cry. Maybe if I lock myself up in my bedroom and scream into my pillow, I feel safe enough to be angry. Where can you find those places of safe enough energy? So I'm going to jump to TikTok for a second and see if anyone wants to share their experiences of the week, where you've maybe been struggling with feeling safe enough to be vulnerable and take those risks of unmasking. My friend Abby's up on the TikTok, and Abby was saying that bathroom floors have been one of those places for her. And I think about the bathroom floor, not just from the perspective of being closed up in the bathroom, but also like usually bathroom floors have cold tile. And there's something that's really nice for the body and shocking for the body about a cold floor tile that helps comfort, in addition to having that private space. And we have another friend, Sis, who likes to go in the closet and put the headphones on and just be in that quiet, silent space for a second and know I'm safe enough. You know what song is coming to me is that song from Cinderella, "In my own little corner, my own little chair." Yeah, I don't know if anyone is a music theater nerd that's listening to my podcast, but that song is coming to me, and it's so, oh my gosh, like it's so on point, because Cinderella's character is really deep in a traumatic situation. She has had a lot of loss in her life, her mother, her father, and she is being forced into servitude. And that's a really, really intense traumatic experience, isn't it? She's dealing with a lot of chaotic, controlling energy, and she finds that safe enough space in her own little corner, in her own little chair. So these places are so vital and so important. We need the ability to feel safe enough so we can recharge and keep fighting and going up that mountain. And I wonder how can we bring those little corner chairs out into the world, outside of the bathrooms, outside of our closets, outside of our cars? How can we find our safe enough spaces, even in the midst of the danger? So I wonder what exercises or skills or things can you bring with you that can give you that safe enough place, even in the midst of the danger? Do you have a place that you can go to in your head or in your body that brings you calm? I think about the safety of a fidget toy, right? Like a fidget toy, being able to move and get that nervous energy out of our body, because a lot of our fear and stuff, it's energy that's stuck in our body and it wants to get out and be released. So having a fidget toy around can create safe enough space for us to be more vulnerable. So we fidget, we get that energy out, it calms our body down so that we can be a little more vulnerable. What are your favorite go-to fidgets or ways that you help regulate your body when you can't escape the danger? An exercise I give my clients a lot is breathing. You know, the basics of breathing, breathe in, breathe out, use your diaphragm. But I also will create a more somatic approach to it so that you can fidget a little bit. So you can take your hand and you can climb up the mountain, so to speak. Breathing in, tracing your thumb to the tip of your finger, and then tracing back down, letting that air out. You can do this pretty discreetly, even under a desk, and it can create this sense of calm and safe enough feeling that we can start to get our safety back a little bit and strengthen up. We can do some progressive muscle relaxation where you squeeze all of your muscles super tight and hold them, hold them, hold them, hold them for about like 5 seconds. Just get all your frustration and your anxiousness all up in there and then release. And just noticing all of that energy just dissipating from your body and what that feels like. Just notice that relief that came about. Try it again. Just squeeze your whole body, squeeze, 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 holding it for about 5 seconds. Every muscle in your body, everything you could possibly squeeze, and then just release it. Yeah, that feels good. Even comboing that with your breath. As I like to say with coping skills, sometimes you need a higher prescription. And one of the ways that I like to give higher prescriptions is put some skills together. So don't just do the breathing exercise. Don't just do the muscle exercise. Do them together. So take a breath in and squeeze and hold, 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 and then take a big breath out. Amp up that prescription. Just trying to recharge, rejuvenate your energy. Have I eaten today? Do I need a snack? Maybe I need to have some crackers ready to go so that I don't get hangry at people. Sometimes when we get that nervous, anxious energy, it can be as simple as I need water. I need something to eat. Maybe we're hungry. Maybe we're thirsty. Sometimes our basic needs aren't being met. And basic needs don't just stop at being in shelter. We need to eat. We need to drink water. We need to go to the bathroom. Our bodies need to pee and poop, guys. I'm sorry, but that's just life. Our bodies need to pee and poop. We need to let the toxins out of our body. We need to let the body let go of things that it doesn't need. And that includes peeing and pooing. Not just breathing and releasing energy, but sometimes it's literal physical things. That's why we throw up. Sometimes we have this feeling like, oh my God, I need to throw up. I need to throw up. Well, it's because there's a toxin in your body, whether it's mental or physical. Your body's saying, I need to get rid of this. So sometimes maybe we even just need to imagine like vomiting out the stuff we don't need. I don't need that. I don't need it. But that can be hard because our masks feel safe. We want to keep our masks on because it's offering a form of protection. And it might feel too dangerous to let that mask down, because if I let that mask down, something might come get me. I might get judged. I might get bullied. Whatever it is, if I let that mask down, what is going to happen? Well, let me ask you this. How safe is that mask actually? Think about it. Is that mask actually physically protecting me, or does it just feel like it is protecting me? Am I actually holding myself back? Am I limiting my possibilities? Am I limiting what I can do? Maybe invisibility is no longer safe. Maybe invisibility has become unsafe because I can no longer stand to be in this closet. I can no longer stand to be on this bathroom floor. I need to let it out. I need my pain, my hurt to be heard and known. And sometimes our body does it for us. It starts shaking. We start crying. Those grief bursts come because our body knows we can't let this stay inside forever. It needs to become visible. I can't live like this forever. It's taking my body down. My body is getting tired. It's exhausted. It can't physically hold up this mask anymore. It takes energy to keep that mask up and on. If you put on a mask, like literally, like let's go into the metaphor of it all. If you like literally like put on a mask right now, you either are putting it on with like one of those like tight strings, or maybe you're like gluing it on. But the thing is, that glue, it's going to block your pores. Your pores need to breathe at a certain point. You can't literally wear that physical mask every single day. Your skin needs to breathe. And if you're not even like having it glued on, you just have that strap, like it starts to hurt. That elastic starts to physically hurt. It becomes really uncomfortable. And eventually you're like, oh my God, I need to get this mask off of my face, because we are not meant to wear a mask all day long. Our bodies are not built for that. And so if we put on masks and try to seem like we're one way when we're another, that takes a lot of energy. And at a certain point, we're going to burn out because we don't have any energy left to keep that mask up. So what if we took a little bit of that vulnerable risk? Maybe it's no longer safe to stay masked. Maybe it is becoming very painful. It might actually be safer to unmask, because my body can do what it's naturally supposed to do, what it's naturally meant to do. What would that be like? What would it be like to just stim the fuck away? Just shake it all out. What would it be like to just express how you feel? You just feel how you feel, because it's a feeling. It's not a fact. It's just an opinion. We all have intrusive thoughts. It's natural. It's normal. What if you could just say it? What if you could just feel it? What if your sadness is valid and important, and your body needs to feel and experience that in order to release it for you? Maybe it's time to get moving. Maybe it's time to start mourning. Let's get moving, y'all. Let's get mourning. So those who've been invested in the beginnings of this podcast, you know that I'm a bit of a mystic, and I love the mystery and asking questions. And I also love writing and art. And because of that, I got deeply special interested into tarot and oracle a long time ago. I love ending the episode this way because there's so much beautiful language and art to embrace to help us get our grief moving into mourning. And so let's see what the cards have to say today about making those changes, about taking those vulnerable risks of letting our mask come down. And I think I'm going to go back to the deck I pulled up on the first episode, actually. We're going to go back to the Lineages of Change deck. I love this deck so much. It is a collaborative deck of various Black writers, Black artists, and it's all about the fact that the one thing we can guarantee in life is there's going to be change. There's going to be movement. And as I started off the podcast by saying, sometimes we can instigate the change ourselves, and sometimes the universe is like, I'm sorry, you're not doing it, so I'm going to do it for you, because we need to make some movement here. We need to get some change going. It is time to get moving. It is time to start growing and taking the risk of making those mistakes so we can grow and learn. So let's see what the cards have to say today to us about how we get moving, how we get going, and start unmasking and living more authentically as ourselves. So just, oh, well, that was fast. Okay. All right. We're going right in, y'all, okay? We have the 3 of air. So I'm going to show it to you faced up first. And then I'm just going to let you know that 3 of air actually showed up in reverse. So we are dealing with the 3 of air in this deck. Okay, 3 of air. How beautiful is this art? I'm just taking it in. I haven't pulled this card yet because this is still a little bit of a new deck to me. But this deck has, even though it's the air card, there's a lot of water in it too. So it's clear like we're going to be talking a bit about some emotions, but even just the movement, the flow. I mean, this is so perfect for what we're talking about today. How do we get the movement and the flow going? And I feel like, y'all, it was in reverse. It's calling us out on our flow, our lack of movement. Let's go see what it actually has in this book about the 3 of air. So 3 of air is, of course, we're nothing if not consistent on this podcast. 3 of air is all about separation and heartbreak and grief and mental anguish. LOL. Of course it is. Of course it is. So this card might evoke the mental state of heartbreak. Moments when we can loop through scenarios of separation, remembering things that we long for, that we aren't sure we can live without. This can signify inner grief and the doldrums of sorrow. So in reverse, it speaks to the fact that maybe we might be struggling with admitting to ourselves that our heart is broken. I mean, I feel called out. I don't know about anyone else, and if anyone else is on the thread I'm on, but yeah, that's rude. It says a broken heart means you loved. It means you tried. It means you opened yourself. Honor the risk and work you've done and feel. God damn it. Have I cried on this podcast yet? I think I'm on the verge. Wow. I feel very targeted. I'm going to say that last line again. Honor the risk and work that you have done and feel. Honor it. You might have a broken heart, but it means that you have loved. It means that you have tried. It means that you opened yourself up, that you took the risk of vulnerability and stepping into that land of being safe enough to make a mistake and to be able to learn and grow from it. So with this deck, they pair a quote from various pieces of Black literature. This quote is from Tenerife Dew from Blood Colony. And they say, your past is your shadow. It has form, but no substance, except in the places that you allow it to touch you. Woof. Yeah, I'm just letting that one settle for a second. Wow. So the question that it leaves us with is, what is heavy on your heart? What is heavy on your heart this week, y'all? What do we need to leave in the shadows in order to get going? What do we need to learn from those shadows? What shadows maybe do we need to give some substance to get them moving and flowing again? Because if you listen to last week's episode, we talked about that third need of mourning, which is the remembering. That remembering is where we do a lot of our learning. It's where we find our identity and our meaning. So sometimes we do need to give these shadows some substance because there's something else to learn about them and why they are there in the first place, so that maybe they don't freak us out when we see them along our path. Cool. I love my job. I love doing this stuff. I love having these conversations, and I hope you are enjoying having these conversations with me. So if you are interested in continuing the conversation, you can find me on pretty much all social platforms at give_into_love on TikTok, on Insta, Facebook, YouTube. You can find me on Substack now, and I would love to continue talking with you on there about these threads this week. And I so look forward to seeing where this movement takes us once we get unstuck. Where are we going to go? What are we going to find in this wilderness? Let's see what's out there, y'all. Let's go exploring and wandering. So this week, I just want to leave you with the hope that in this time of getting moving, you get some roots that deepen, and maybe you even start to see some buds blooming. Until next time.
This podcast was created just for you by Give Into Love Productions through the use of Riverside, your next step in content creation. And finally, a huge shout out to Adrienne Marie Brown and all of the amazing writers and artists who came together to make the Lineages of Change Tarot deck. If you want to get your own because you thought the art and the writing was amazing this episode, make sure to visit rep.club and support the concept bookshop and creative space named Reparations Club, which is Black-owned and woman-owned and curated by Blackness in Los Angeles, California.